Tonight, delays to ambulance call-outs. An 89-year-old woman is left on a pavement with a broken hip for more than 3.5 hours, despite multiple calls to 999.
The call handler, quite frankly, was a disgrace at that point. He said it doesn't matter if she's 1 or 100, there needs to be some sort of improvement made.
Also making the headlines, guidance on school toilets. Pupils will be asked to use facilities which correspond to their biological sex.
I'm at the Labour conference in Liverpool, where we've heard lots of new policies, but also questions about Keir Starmer's leadership.
And in sport, Robert McIntyre reflects on a day of drama as Europe hold off a USA comeback to win the Ryder Cup. I'm Kellyanne Woodland. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The family of an 89-year-old woman who lay on a pavement with a broken hip for more than 3.5 hours waiting for an ambulance say they feel extremely let down. Agnes Healy tripped on a curb in Hamilton. Her sons lifted her into a car and drove her to hospital. They say call handlers told them their mother's age made no difference to how ambulances are allocated. The ambulance service has apologised for the delay. Our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie, reports.
Agnes Healy was out for a walk with her husband when she tripped on a curb and fell. A neighbour phoned an ambulance and was told waiting times were just over an hour. Her son arrived and called several times when it failed to show.
She was in an awful lot of pain. She was lying on the ground. We were told we could not move her because that might exacerbate the situation. So you had to leave her there. And it says she's white as a sheet, her breathing is very laboured, but none of that made a difference.
After 3.5 hours, James called them back one final time.
The call handler, quite frankly, was a disgrace at that point. He said it doesn't matter if she's 1 or 100, it's not taken into account. And the other thing he said was that if she's still breathing, then it's not necessarily a top priority. And to call back should things deteriorate. And I said to him, well, what does that mean? I'm not a health professional. I can't see how it can get much worse unless she actually does stop breathing. And he just repeated that line again.
James and his brothers managed to get their mother into his car and drive to hospital.
They were too much in their mind anyway, so I didn't cancel the ambulance. And in the house where my mum had been lying outside the house, they said it arrived at 9 o'clock that night, which was virtually 5 hours from the first call. So, in my opinion, it's just, horrendous level of service. It needs to be looked at. They need to look at their processes and there needs to be some sort of improvement made.
This happened on the same day a footballer had to wait 5 hours for an ambulance after breaking her leg.
I apologise to Brooke Patterson because I've read the story this morning.
The First Minister apologised after the teenager lay on the pitch, covered in coats to keep warm.
I've sat outside the hospital for about 10 hours with one patient.
Last month, ambulance staff in Aberdeen told STV News about significant delays in handover at hospitals. The Scottish Ambulance Service says that was behind this long wait, as well as high demand. It has apologised to Mrs Healy.
I feel extremely let down. I think I'm very supportive of everything they're trying to do. I do understand all the challenges that are there, but I have to say that I feel extremely let down by what's happened.
The ambulance service has launched an investigation, promising all findings will be shared with the Healy family.
Ewan, that was clearly a distressing time for this family.
It was, and they remain really, really angry about how this has all been dealt with. The ambulance service says its staff triage calls to prioritise the most seriously ill, but they consider the condition of the patient and not the age. What this highlights, though, is that long waits for ambulances are not necessarily isolated cases, and that shows once again the huge pressure on the NHS throughout the entire system.
And we spoke about this last week, didn't we?
We did. It's just a week ago that we were sat here talking about long waits in A&E departments, and this is linked to that. If there are no beds to transfer patients from ambulances, then those ambulances can be stuck at hospitals sometimes for hours on end, unable to go to other call-outs. Now, the First Minister said last week that he would look into the case of the teenage footballer. The Healy family have also written to John Swinney looking for answers on their case as well.
All right, Ewan, well, look, let us know how they got on. Thank you. Now, school pupils will be asked to use toilet facilities which correspond to their biological sex rather than ones they feel most comfortable with under updated guidance. The Scottish Government says the refreshed rules give schools more confidence in the provision of toilet facilities and help them support transgender children. Well, our political reporter Laura Alderman joins us now. And Laura, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, the Scottish Government says that for pupils and staff heading into schools like this one, the rules around toilets and changing facilities will now be a lot clearer. Because until today, those rules were that pupils and staff should use the facilities they felt the most comfortable with. The issue then being that could create a situation makes other people uncomfortable. Now, you might be wondering, how did we get here? Well, amidst the wider gender debate, this stems back to a decision made by the Supreme Court in April surrounding the definition of a woman. Now, judges unanimously ruled in favour of campaign group Women for Women Scotland, declaring the words woman and sex in the 2010 Equality Act refers to a biological woman and biological sex, not to a certified gender like someone who has a gender recognition certificate, as the Scottish Government had argued. But that ruling then meant that public bodies had to rethink and update their own guidance around facilities like toilets and changing rooms. Now, shortly before we came on air tonight, I spoke to the Education Secretary, who told me that over the summer months she'd been speaking with COSLA and trade unions, and she explained the updated guidance.
I think it's really important that every pupil in Scotland is able to reach their potential, and every pupil, of course, deserves our support in doing that. So our updated guidance means that all of their individual needs will be respected. All schools are required to provide separate toilets for girls and boys. And in addition, the guidance makes very clear that councils should give careful consideration to the individual needs of transgender pupils.
And Laura, what are campaigners on both sides saying on the issue?
Well, some are saying that this will lead to additional stress for children and staff who may be transgender. And when looking at the guidance, it's clear that local authorities and school will have to be very careful when making that extra provision for those who are transgender, so as not to accidentally out them or identify them publicly. For Women Scotland told me just before we came on air that they were glad the Scottish Government had recognised the importance of the Supreme Court's decision, and the Scottish Conservatives, who have been opposed to gender reforms from day one, said that the guidance is contradictory and potentially harmful. Now, whatever one's individual view on this might be, it's clear that schools and councils now know what the rules are going forward.
All right, with the latest, thank you very much, Laura. Keir Starmer is on the offensive at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool with a series of new policies announced to take on Nigel Farage's reform. The Prime Minister is also facing questions about his own future. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Gertsianis is in Liverpool for us. Paris, what's the mood there?
Well, Kellyanne, there's a big contrast with last year when Labour were still celebrating their huge general election win. Now things are much more uncertain because Labour is behind reform in the polls across the UK and behind the SNP in Scotland. Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, is here. His message is, we've beaten the odds before, we can do it again. But he has said his party has got to get better at telling its own story. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is talking up the fight with reform. He's called their policy of potentially deporting hundreds of thousands of migrants who are legally here in UK. He says that's racist. In terms of taking on the SNP, there's lots of mentions of the £10 billion warship deal with Norway, which will bring jobs to the Clyde. But most of the new policies we've heard are squarely aimed at reform.
We will soon increase the time in which someone must have lived in this country to earn indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10. I will be proposing a series of new tests, such as being in work, making national insurance contributions, not taking a penny in benefits, learning English to a high standard, having no criminal record, and finally, that you have truly given back to your community, such as by volunteering your time to a local cause.
Our guarantee means that any young person out of work, education or training for more than 18 months will be given a paid work placement. I commit this Labour government to nothing less than the abolition of long-term youth unemployment.
Now, what Rachel Reeves didn't mention there is that if a young person refuses that offer of work, they could lose their benefits. Throw in the proposal for a digital ID scheme to combat illegal working by migrants, and you have a really big package of measures aimed at voters who are taking a long, hard look at reform.
And Paris, there's pressure on Keir Starmer from within Labour too.
That's right. A lot of attention at this conference on Andy Burnham, the Labour Mayor of Manchester, who has raised questions about where the party is going under Keir Starmer. Now, Andy Burnham has admitted he can't actually challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership because he's not an MP. But he does have a base of support on the left of the party and among the party membership. And if things do go badly for Labour at elections next year in Scotland and across the UK, Keir Starmer's critics reckon that they have a ready-made replacement. When he speaks here tomorrow, the Prime Minister is going to have to convince doubters out in the country and here in this conference hall.
All right, Paris, live from Liverpool, thank you. Now, latest health statistics see rates of gonorrhea have reached record highs in Scotland. A report by Public Health Scotland states there's been a 59% increase in the number of diagnoses of the STI between 2019 and 2023, with young people most affected. Students at Glasgow Caledonian University have produced a short film about why it should be normal to get tested. Raheem Cham reports.
What would you do if your partner tested positive for a sexually transmitted infection?
I felt so embarrassed. I thought you could only get an STI if you slept around.
This short film, produced by students at Glasgow Caledonian University, aims to show young people that STIs and testing don't have to be frightening.
It's so important that people don't feel any sort of sense of shame or embarrassment about getting tested. And I think that's kind of, when we were talking about the script and the ideas, we really wanted to make something that made people feel at ease, because we know it's a very difficult subject and we know that people can feel scared or nervous or embarrassed, and that's the last thing that we want.
Rates of gonorrhea have reached record highs in Scotland, with a 59% increase in the number of diagnoses of STIs between 2019 and 2023. However, Public Health Scotland reports that there was a 13% drop in rates of chlamydia, falling from 13,000 diagnoses in 2023 to 11,000 in 2024. Young people were most impacted, and access to testing remains unequal, with people under 30 years old accounting for 77% of chlamydia diagnoses in 2024. The film also highlights how young Black and Caribbean communities are disproportionately impacted.
There can be a lot of stigma, there's family expectations, there's cultural norms, and kind of this mix of factors can sort of result in members of this community having less comfort sort of engaging with the STI testing process, or just with the health system in general. So I think it's really important that we're able to sort of reach out to this community directly.
Sexual health clinics say testing is becoming more accessible.
I think you're here so that we can get you treated for your chlamydia infection.
And she'll feel straightforward, supportive, and completely normal.
Part of the problem is that often infections are there without any symptoms, so sex partners often don't really understand why it's important for them to get tested, because they think if they have no symptoms, nothing could be wrong. It's important that young people can have happy, confident sex lives, and getting checked up and treated for an infection is just a normal part of life.
And with Freshers Week in full swing, young people are being urged to protect themselves. Raheem Cham, STV News, Glasgow.
Police say searches at a park and a property in Castlemilk, as well as an address in the Gorbals, are all linked to an ongoing investigation into the discovery of human remains near Loch Lomond. STV News understands it's in relation to the death of Graham Wright, whose partial remains were found near Firkin Point earlier this month. A man who died in an incident in Airdrie has been named. 30-year-old Kevin Samuel Bowman was found injured at a property on Hamilton Drive in the early hours of the 18th of September. A murder inquiry is currently ongoing. A second man, aged 27, was taken to Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth Hospital for treatment. Cineworld has closed its doors for the final time in Glasgow city centre. Staff were told the landlords had informed the cinema chain that they wanted to take back the site. The Renfrew Street building opened as a UGC in 2001 and has been operated by Cineworld for the past 20 years. Now, residents say the lives of school children are at risk from a lack of road safety measures on a section of the A84 in Stirlingshire. The area, which includes Kincardine and Menteith Primary School and Blair Drummond Safari Park, saw a series of car crashes this summer, and campaigners are calling on Transport Scotland to act. Tara Fitzpatrick has more.
These primary pupils have the same message residents in Blair Drummond have been repeating for years. 5 car accidents occurred on this stretch of the A84 in just 1 month this summer, but calls for intervention have been ringing for decades.
There's people going too fast, not realising that there's a school right here, and it's just not safe for anyone. I just feel like every time I come off of that road, there's something that's going to hit us. It's quite scary when you're walking down and then cars just go flying past you really fast. I feel really unsafe, and there could be like a crash that could really badly hurt someone.
Val, a parent at the local primary school, has been writing to Transport Scotland for 5 years.
In February 21, Transport Scotland came and they did a survey here. They identified there was a problem and they said work was going to be undertaken in this financial year. That was cancelled at the start of 2022, and every year since we've been told work's going to take place in this financial year, and now we're in 2025 and we've been told the same thing. And the problem is that we just don't believe Transport Scotland anymore.
There's at least twice a week there's a moment where I'm like, oh, I don't like this. It's just, yeah, school drop off and pick up is not a nice time of day.
2007 I was hit with a car sitting stationary turning up to right up Cuthelbray, and the car just ran into the back of me. It was just people not paying attention and going far too fast. And the driver himself, he broke his arm, so he did, and I was taken away in an ambulance with a burst disc, so it wasn't very good.
Just up the road, staff at Blair Drummond Safari Park have been first responders to a number of accidents this summer.
The roads was then closed, so then you try to keep the traffic flowing as best as you can until the emergency services can come here and get a handle on it. So definitely becoming more common. I think it will continue to happen, yeah, unless something drastically is done to change.
A petition calling for the government to commit to safety measures has so far attracted over 1,200 signatures.
I think what we need to do is we have to have the meeting between the community, Transport Scotland and the Transport Secretary to really put a focus on this.
Transport Scotland say safety improvements will be made to the primary school entrance this year, and a review of collisions over the last 5 years is underway.
60 is risky, 20 is plenty.
Until then, these pupils are determined to make their voices heard.
Road safety measures!
Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Blair Drummond.
OK, sport now, and Rahman is leading with the drama at the Ryder Cup.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
Good evening. Robert McIntyre admits the European team endured a stressful final day in the Ryder Cup as they held off a dramatic USA comeback to win the trophy. After dominating the first 2 days, back-to-back Ryder Cup wins looked a formality for Europe as they went into yesterday's singles with a 7-point lead. But it got close. Oh, how it got close, with Luke Donald's team ultimately winning 15 points to 13. After a day of gut-wrenching drama, during which America produced a stunning comeback, Shane Lowry held his nerve at the 18th hole. Lowry's half point ensured the Ryder Cup was staying with Europe.
I didn't envision myself going up the 18th needing a birdie to retain the Ryder Cup. It was yeah, like the worst 2 hours of my life. It was horrible.
I was very fortunate to have 11 of the same guys from Rome. My job is to give guys a better chance to win, and can be as simple as some very small things.
Leading 11.5 to 4.5 going into the singles yesterday, Europe needed just 2.5 points to take the trophy back across the Atlantic and 3 points for outright victory. But hole after hole,
this little short one, oh, hello.
Shot after shot.
Seventh, and close at the seventh. Can you believe this?
Putt after putt. The gap was down to 5 points, with a sea of American red on the board for the remaining matches, the last of which was Bob McIntyre's. Could it come down to the Scot? Ludwig Åberg halted the US charge with a much-needed point for Europe, but the drama wasn't over. That's until Lowry drilled his 6-foot putt, then Tyrrell Hatton tied his match for Europe to claim outright victory. So, in the end, it didn't come down to McIntyre, who also drew his match.
It was stressful most of the day, but yeah, just delighted when Tyrrell managed to get that half a point to secure it.
The European players celebrated after securing their first win in America since 2012.
We won in Rome and the wheels were set in motion to try to do something that hadn't been done in over a decade.
He's the captain of this ship and he's led us better than I can see anybody leading us.
As the celebrations continue, the question now is, will Luke Donald captain the team for a third time when the Ryder Cup takes place in Ireland in 2027? To football, and Max Aarons hopes his last gasp winner for Rangers over Livingston yesterday can help make up for his red card against Bruges last month, as Russell Martin's side finally got their first win in the Premiership. James Tavernier put Rangers 1-up midway through the first half. Soon after, the visitors were awarded a penalty after Nikola Raskan was fouled in the box, but Tavernier's spot kick was saved. In the 68th minute, Mohamed Silla levelled for Livy. Then, 4 minutes into added time, substitute Aaron struck. This was the defender's first game since his sending off against Bruges.
No one was more disappointed than myself with that. I've never been sent off in my career, and a moment like that, a lapse in concentration, was extremely disappointing for me, especially in a crucial game like that. And it was always going to be a difficult game for the team, let alone with 10 men. So I knew I wanted to make up for that as quick as possible, and the first chance since that game on the pitch was today, so hopefully in a small way I've done that.
Now, ahead of this weekend's Edinburgh derby, former Hearts captain Christophe Berra says they have the firepower to claim victory over Hibs, while Kevin Thompson believes his ex-club will fancy their chances at Tynecastle. Hearts continued their strong start to the season with a 3-0 win over Falkirk, Alexandros Kizaridis and Loris Shankland among the goals. Meanwhile, Hibs claimed a morale-boosting goalless draw away to Celtic.
At Tynecastle, it's an intimidating arena. No doubt the Hibs players will like playing there, but Hearts will go in there full of confidence, scoring goals. And as previous I've said before, the last couple of seasons they've relied on Lawrence Shankland to score the goals, and now they've got goals all over the park.
I don't think you want to see your arch rivals flying high, do you? I think that's just a natural thing, but all credit to Hearts. It's an intriguing one, but I certainly think Dave and the boys will fancy going there. Would they take a point? Potentially. But if you tell Hibs fans that, they'll want to go there and win, obviously.
Well, following the weekend's games, this is how the table looks. Hearts hold a 2-point lead over Celtic. St Mirren, Motherwell and Kilmarnock also climbed. In other sport, Edinburgh rugby attack coach Scott Matthews says it would be unwise to write them off after the defeat to Zebra on the opening game of the URC season. The Italians claimed victory by 31 points to 28 as Edinburgh failed to get off to a positive start to the campaign. Well, Glasgow Warriors started their URC campaign with a convincing 35-19 bonus point win over Sharks, with Jamie Dobie scoring one of the team's 4 tries. But in snooker, there was disappointment for Anthony McGill, who lost 10 frames to 7 by Sean Murphy in the British Open final. The Scot had led 7-6, but Murphy won the next 4 frames to take the trophy.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
And that is all your sports tonight, Helen.
All right, thanks very much, Raman. OK, let's get your weather now from Philip. And Philip, you've got us off to a bad start A weather warning already from the Met Office about rain.
Yes, Kellyanne, it is a bit of a miserable week to come, unfortunately, particularly towards the end of the week when we'll see some pretty high rainfall totals. Now, throughout this week, we've got various pulses of rain pushing in from the south and the southwest, sometimes showery, sometimes more persistent and heavy in nature. The band of rain that comes in overnight Wednesday into Thursday is set to bring some very high levels of rainfall, which is what triggered the Met Office warning issued today. That comes into effect 5 p.m. Wednesday and runs until 6 a.m. Friday. Within that warning time, we're expected to see 50 to 70 millimetres of rain widely within that warning area. But that is on top of what we will already be seeing tomorrow. Along with that, some very strong winds too. So let's take a closer look. Here is the forecast.
Midday Mayan temples, followed by sunny afternoons on the sand. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, for most of the rest of this week, we're seeing a bit of a northwest-southeast divide across the UK. Parts of England and Wales seeing fine settled conditions thanks to high pressure dominating their weather. Here in Scotland, though, a very different picture, unfortunately. We've got various frontal systems crossing the country, bringing with it bands of rain and showers from time to time. Tightly packed isobars giving us some stronger winds. And we're just keeping an eye on this area of low pressure that's approaching just in time for the weekend. Back to just now, though, as we head into the overnight period, it will be turning largely dry for a time for many of us. We will see some clear skies, but also some mist and fog patches forming. Further west, though, we'll see this next front moving in through the early hours of tomorrow morning, bringing with it a band of thicker cloud and some further showery outbreaks of rain. So temperatures across the very far west, lows of around 12 or 13 degrees Celsius. Where we see any clear skies, lows of around 8 or 9. So looking ahead to tomorrow, the best of any brighter spells will be further east. Elsewhere, we're continuing to see that cloud and rain pushing in from the west. It will fizzle out by the time it reaches eastern areas, in the best of any brighter spells reaching highs of around 17 degrees Celsius. Then looking ahead to Wednesday, further rain piling in from the west. This is when we start to see those rainfall totals building, and it will be a widely windy day, reaching gale force around western coastal parts and highs of 19. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
So I think we're in for a miserable few days when it comes to the weather. Well, that's all we have time for this evening, but don't forget, Colin will bring you Scotland Tonight later. From all of us here on the team, though, enjoy the rest of your evening and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.